Welcome to The Shoreline, brought to you by Shores and Islands, Ohio, where finding your Lake Erie love is a sure thing. Thank you for joining us. I'm your host, Jill Bauer, PR Manager for Shores and Islands, Ohio. We bring you The Shoreline every week to give you the inside scoop on what's happening here in our island and coastal communities. We are continuing to fly through the month of May. All of this month's episodes are brought to you by Ghostly Manor Thrill Center and Goofy Golf. Ready for family outdoor fun? Head to Goofy Golf in Sandusky with two 18-hole mini golf courses, an arcade, go-karts, and a new 32-foot tall rock wall. It's nonstop excitement for all ages. Open daily at Goofy Golf. Find the details at goofy-golf.com. Memorial Day weekend is almost upon us, and with that, the unofficial national start of summer. Locally, our big Memorial Day weekend event is the annual Walleye Festival held in Port Clinton, the walleye capital of the world. This 5-day festival, held on the shores of Lake Erie at Waterworks Park, features rides, food trucks, vendors, and live music, among other special events, such as a grand parade and a fishing derby. Who's going to join me there? Also, we've been talking about the ferries running for a while now, but they're going to expand their services this weekend. The jet will start their route out of Sandusky. It's time to start going out to the islands and enjoying the quiet, quaint atmosphere during the week and the rousing energy on the weekends. Who's ready for island season? Speaking of island season, our guest today is part of that rousing energy. But before we get to him, one more quick reminder that you can always find our special events, island and ferry information, and all the tips and tricks to plan your Shores and Islands Ohio getaway online at shoresandislands.com. Joining us today is the legendary Bob Gatewood. Bob Gatewood has been a popular entertainer for many years on Put-in-Bay, by himself or with his band Calabash. He wrote the official song of the island, Friends of the Bay, and his music is regularly played on the radio in this part of the state. Scene Magazine in Cleveland awarded him Best of the Year for his album Finally Home, and The Plain Dealer said his song I Ain't Working for the Man is a working man's classic. He also runs several small island businesses with his wife, Andrea, and we're so thrilled to welcome Bob as our first musical guest ever. Hi, Bob.
Hello, Jill. Thank you so much. That was the best intro I've ever heard.
I love it. So, okay, let's go back a ways. Back in the 80s, you were a part of a popular island and North Coast Ohio band called Calabash. Why don't you take us back a little bit and tell us how that group got started and maybe some of your, great memories of touring and performing with the band?
Oh, sure. Boy, we had a ball. We actually still play at the Roundhouse every summer here. We're starting our 39th year at the Roundhouse. We do this thing on Wednesdays. It's a lot of fun. But so the beginnings of the band, I had just had this itch to go play music, and I'd been doing it since I was a child. I'd been banging on a coffee can, my mom tells me. And yeah, it was so I started on drums first, but then in 8th grade, my drums got stolen, and I thought it'll be easier and cheaper to be the guy up front with the microphone. And boy, what a mistake that was. It wasn't cheaper or easier, but it was more fun. Yes. We had fun because you can't go play solo drums. You have to, the guy up front with the microphone and the guitar, he can go play solo. So I actually started playing out solo, but my sense of timing and rhythm was bad. And I heard how much I went and heard live music. And I thought, wow, that whole band sounds so much better when you have drums and bass and keyboards and all that stuff. So yeah. I set about trying to find a couple guys and found a couple guys and we started playing, and we actually went out into some of the worst neighborhoods in Cuyahoga County in Cleveland, and were able to make some money, and we played some weddings at AmVet halls and VFW halls with, we would get paid all the spaghetti you can eat and $50 and we were happy. That was good. And then we decided that we would take a vacation and decide on a permanent drummer. We went down to Myrtle Beach, and we had some fun in the sun, got terribly sunburned, and then started heading back. And we realized, hey, we didn't have a name for the band. And so we left Myrtle Beach, started heading north. We crossed over the South Carolina, North Carolina border, and we just started thinking, what are we going to call the band? Well, there on the side of the road was this sign for a city called Calabash, North Carolina. And we said, hey, that sounds pretty good. Let's call it Calabash. We came back home and we started working really hard. I had just a really big desire to expand my vocabulary of songs. And so instead of starting with the songs that were on the radio currently, and I guess this would have been 1984, I started learning songs starting with about the beginnings of rock and roll, Elvis and 55, 54, that kind.
Back, yeah.
Yeah, way back. But that was sort of part and parcel for where we were playing at the time. Back then, it was only 30 years after that stuff had come out. And we were playing a lot of old working man bars in Cleveland and that stuff, and Elvis. And I mean, way before the Beatles, that was really popular. So then I worked my way up through the 60s and I started learning all the Beatles and Stones and Kinks and Who and Doors. And then that was all good. And then I through the 70s and I learned all the Zeppelin and Aerosmith and Kiss and even a couple disco songs, God forbid. And,
Can't imagine.
Not that there's anything wrong with it. It just wasn't but in Cleveland, there was a big thing. They had Stamp Out Disco. They had this thing at the Cleveland Stadium where you bring your disco records and they'd burn them.
I heard about that.
Yes. Well, it was way before your time. It is actually very true. And so we just had a ball and we very quickly worked our way up in most of the markets that we were at. I was playing in Lakewood and, well, in the right about the time I was fixing to put a band together, I said, where all the good bands go is I had heard of a place called Put-in-Bay, and I'd also heard of a place called the Flats. And so this agent booked me down into the Flats, and I went down there to play on St. Patrick's Day, and they booked me as Robert O. Gatewood. And I went down into I know, how absolutely shameful. So I went down there, and it turned out to be, after I'd been doing this music for a while, it turned out that if I went and played 4 or 5 or 6 of these terrible gigs a week, I would have enough for a jar of peanut butter and a ghetto apartment, and life was pretty good. And so there was an Irish guy that lived right down the street, so Irish I could not even understand what he said. But I said, hey, man, they booked me into the Flats. I have to, on St. Patrick's Day, I need to learn some Irish stuff. And he told me that, and I'll spare you the brogue accent, but he said, well, you got to learn all these Irish American songs. You don't want to really actually learn Irish songs. You want Irish American songs. So I went and I got myself a bunch of books and I learned Harrigan and Danny Boy and Sweet Rosie O'Grady and When Clancy Lowers the Boom and dozens and dozens, on and on. And I had them down. I was ready for my big day down to the Flats. And I get down to the Flats and I start playing in. I played an Irish song and everybody, was not paying attention. They got up and went to the bathroom and I was like, what the heck? And it turns out they didn't want to hear any of that stuff. All they wanted to hear was Brown Eyed Girl and Sweet Caroline and Twist and Shout. And so all that stuff was lost on the crowd. But it was pretty good. And right about then we started putting bands together and we started playing in the Flats. And I was really researching it now and found out that where you want to play was in the Flats because I realized that if you play where there's more beer being sold, there's a better chance of you getting better than $50 and a plate of spaghetti.
Right.
True. And it worked out pretty well. And we started working our way up from some of the smaller clubs, finally worked our way all the way up to this place called Fagan's in the Flats, which is a really big club. And we were the house band there. But before we got there, I'd also heard about this place called Put-in-Bay. And I'd heard that all the really good bands went to Put-in-Bay. So we went up there and we played. And this sweet lady named Terry Winchester, who used to run the Roundhouse Bar, taught me a lot about how to please a crowd. All those fancy guitar solos really didn't mean a diddly. And, the intros and the outros, you could chop those off too. Get to the meat of the song and don't talk too much and play the songs they want to hear and smile at the people. They want to have fun. They don't really want to hear a history lesson on where the Beatles came from. And boy, oh boy, did I learn a lot from that lady. So we were pretty big time down in the Flats and Put-in-Bay. We were quickly the biggest or the most booked band.
When did you start playing at Put-in-Bay?
Yeah. Well, only the Roundhouse at that point. Now I've spread out and played a bunch of other places up there. But
well, of course. But was this in the mid-'80s that you came to Put-in-Bay?
Yes, ma'am. I think our first year at the Roundhouse, we're celebrating our 39th year and chased down the contracts to try to find out when we started playing here. And most of it is on antique paper and Sanskrit. Nobody can really even translate it. It's so old.
Carved in stone.
So I think it was 86 that we started there. So next year, I think it's going to be our 40th year or however it worked out. And so it was right about then that we started also getting an idea on this other place called Sloppy Joe's Bar.
Yeah.
He said that he was a T-shirt printer in Cleveland. And he said they make more T-shirts than anybody else he'd read other than Hard Rock Cafe. And he said, they make this Ernest Hemingway T-shirt and I want to go down there and get the account. And I said, okay, buddy, good luck. So he goes down there. He didn't get the account, but when he was on the way out, he put a cassette tape, will you, on the PA system, and everybody started dancing. And they said, well, who are these kids? They said, well, this is Calabash from Cleveland. And so they said, well, get them down here. So we went down there and we played I think it was a Tuesday, Wednesday, and a Thursday in the middle of August, which was just miserably hot. And we were still getting about the same $50 and a plate of spaghetti, but
but it was in Key West, so it made it all the better, right?
It made it all the better, yeah.
Where would you say Calabash ended up genre-wise when, you went back all the way to, the 50s, 60s for your inspiration? You clearly didn't stick with the Irish ditties. Where would you say you ended up as far as what Calabash continues to play today?
When I figured out the Irish stuff didn't work, I quickly evolved into what I would call tourist rock. Now, I don't know if that's a chart on Billboard or not, but it's what I call it. When you can play 400 or 500 songs from pretty much every genre that you want, I figured out a way that what I would do is when you have a big crowd of people, you just start throwing fish out there and seeing what works. And eventually, very quickly, you'll find out what those folks want to hear, country or oldies or new wave or whatever, 80s, But when we would play smaller clubs or when I'd play by myself, I wasn't playing by myself quite yet, but what I would do is I'd see somebody walk in the club or a couple walk in the club, and it's pretty easy. So any aspiring musicians, what you do is you look at the folks, you guess their age, you subtract 18 years off what you think their age is, and then that number is how far back you have to go, subtract it from the current year, and you will know what year they were listening to rock and roll. There was a dramatic turn that we made, and this was, I got to say, in the early 90s. We were playing a place on Marblehead somewhere on the mainland. We'd been booked in to play this place, and all I remember, it looked like it was made out of logs. Fort Firelands. So we're playing that place, and Calabash was doing real well. We had long hair. We were rocking out, man. And we had an opening act. And I was only I don't know, 20s, mid-20s or something like that, or maybe late 20s. I can't remember. And I walked, and I happened to go early and catch the opening act. And back then, we ended our show with a song called Roadhouse Blues by the Doors. And we would throw in all the requests that we got all night long into that song. And we even added some Latin phrases. We had a bolero in the middle there, and we sort of wrote a little song and had all this stuff in there. And it made the crowd go crazy. And so I walked in to see the opening act finishing up, and they were doing it verbatim, note for note. And I was pretty naive at the time. I walked up to the band leader and I said, hey, man, we must be like soul brothers when it comes to music because, you heard that Doors song and you came up with the exact same thing that we did, man. I mean, hey, we should get to know each other. We could be really good friends. He goes, well, I'm happy to be friends with you, but that has nothing to do with it. And I said, what do you mean? He goes, well, we saw your band and we saw that you have all the good shows. You guys play the Roundhouse and the Flats and Sloppy Joe's. And so we wanted those jobs. We want to take your work away from you. So we recorded you and we learned it note for note. And that's why we play it, because we're trying to take your job away. I'll tell you, I'm sure that my jaw dropped wide open. I couldn't believe it. And it was right at that minute, I remember very clearly that I said to myself, we have to start writing something that is our own, that cannot be taken away by somebody.
Oh, okay.
So we started writing songs, and boy, was I terrible at writing songs. I remember playing them at the Roundhouse, and people were getting up to go to the bathroom. I might as well have been playing Irish American songs. Eventually, I came up with this song that was sort of a sing-songy kind of song. I called it Friends of the Bay. And I thought it was kind of cool. So I wasn't very rock and roll. It was sort of more a campfire-y folk kind of song. But we played it, and from the very first time that we played it, I noticed that the kids in the crowd were swaying back and forth, arm in arm. And I thought, in sort of a kind of kumbaya sort of fashion. And I thought, wow, well, maybe I'm not the sharpest knife in the drawer, but maybe I should play that one again. I went and recorded it in my buddy's Neanderthal style recording studio, and we made a cassette. And I remember we had them delivered to the there was a Greyhound station, as I recall, on 250 there in Milan.
I remember the Greyhound, yeah.
So yeah, and I got the tapes. They were delivered, and I remember it was raining. I ran across the park with this big box of cassettes, and as soon as I went in, I didn't even make it to the stage to announce that I was selling these cassettes. Everybody knew I was coming with them, and they were offering me, it was $5 a tape. And, we had a big box of them. And by the time I got to the stage, all of the cassettes were sold out. And, and I had this big stack of money in my hand. And I thought to myself, again, not being the sharpest knife in the drawer, but not being the dumbest one either. I thought, this original music thing is pretty cool, right?
When was your first full-length CD or album?
Full-length CD was 1996, and it had a bunch of songs that we still play to this day. So what we play now is a mixture of that old music that we do, classic rock and all the things that people will request, but about half of our own songs that we play, and people have come to know them, and I would say that they're pretty popular up where we play.
Well, I wasn't kidding when I called you a legend. I mean, around here, everybody knows Bob Gatewood and Calabash.
I'm famous throughout the entire zip code up here on Put-in-Bay.
Let's go back to Friends of the Bay, because you mentioned that earlier as being one of the first songs that you wrote. And when you perform it, everybody, links arms and sways. And now it's actually the official song of Put-in-Bay. So tell me a little bit about that. And then if you wouldn't mind, can you play a little bit of that song for us?
I wouldn't mind at all. So we played that song. I actually let it go for several years when we in our longest hair days, because it wasn't a sing-songy campfire song was not what I was doing at the time. We were playing harder rock, and I was writing harder rock originals. But that lady at the Roundhouse, Terry Winchester, said, "Hey, why don't you play that song at the end of the night?" And I thought, okay. So we played it at the end of the night. And so we kept playing it, and it became pretty darn popular. So some years later, many, many years later, I think it was, if I recall, it was 2014, because the mayor, Judy Berry, who's again our mayor, a lovely mayor, does an excellent job of her, had named a day in my honor, which was really a big thrill for me. And
what an honor!
And the village council had voted to make it the official song of the island. Well, you're talking to a kid who has seen Pat Daly play up here for decades, and if there were ever a king of Put-in-Bay, it was that guy there. I mean, he wrote the book, and his songs were so popular.
But to be honest, a lot of his songs can't be played on the radio.
I think that might have something to do with it.
Yeah.
But his songs were perfectly written for a bar crowd. What the heck you got against fish? You ought to come with me when I go out drinking. I might be your daddy. I mean, these are songs that are hilarious.
I love that one.
Yeah. Comedy-based, kind of comedy folk sort of, I wouldn't call them novelty, but comedy-based folk music. And I think that his song, Put-in-Bay, had some lyrics in there that were maybe not right for it. And so when I heard about this, I, of course, was thrilled, But the very first phone call I made was to Pat Daly. I called him up on the phone, and I said, "Pat, I wanted to tell you first, because I just heard this. The village council has voted unanimously to make my song the official song of the island, when I'm not even a mosquito bite on the butt of an elephant compared to you." And
sweet of you.
He was so generous and magnanimous. He said, he always called me kid. He called me kid all the way up till I was in my 50s. And he said, "Kid, I had my time. This is your time. I want you to enjoy it. Go have fun with it." And I'll get misty if I just think about it. That was just so generous of him. And
Yeah.
so they made it the official song of the island, and it's not anything compared to the great Pat Daly or any of the other great musicians.
Oh, stop. You're being too modest.
In my mind, I'm being truthful as well. It's a cool song. Well, I just happen to have a guitar.
Perfect.
Can you hear that at all?
A little bit of Friends of the Bay. Yeah, I hear it great.
Okay, so the song goes like this. It goes, the chorus, I'll just do you the chorus. It goes, hello, friends of the Bay. Well, thank you for coming today. Hello, water so blue. I'll always remember you. That's how the chorus goes.
Hey, I had to stop myself from singing along.
Well, it is that the chorus repeats itself 3 times at the end, so everybody gets a chance to sing it at the end, and I even feed them the words. Yeah, so that song has stuck with us, and as a matter of fact,
that's great.
It inspired me to make another record, and which is the record that we're working on that we're promoting right now.
Let's talk about that. You've got a new album and a new single. I settled up
when I settled down.
That sounds kind of Pat Daly-esque.
Some of my songs have, some entendre, some double meaning or a little bit of fun to them. Like I got this one song that goes, I ain't working for the man no more. So it's kind of like, it's not really serious topics. It's kind of fun. And I settled up when I settled down is kind of one of those songs. So we're promoting that song this spring. I'm of course played at all the shows, and we're also making a music video that's going to be released in the next few weeks.
What's the vision for that video? Are you filming that here, or
we're going to try a different style this time? We're doing an animation.
Oh, that's fun.
Video. Yeah. This album has this song, I Settled Up When I Settled Down. It's kind of like the recording of it is somewhat different than how I play it. On the recording, it's got kind of a cool, I would call it a Django Reinhardt kind of a gypsy jazz kind of thing in the verses. And then the choruses are kind of a punky kind of Blink-182 kind of.
Oh, cool.
So it's kind of a strange dichotomy.
Let's put a pin in that song because I want you to play it for me. But before we get to playing that, I want to talk about some of your upcoming performances because you're still playing all over the place. Sometimes you mentioned with the band, sometimes solo, right? You're doing a lot of solo gigs as well. I know you've got some shows coming up that are here on the mainland because now you're, a full-time island guy, but you're going to be playing the Mixed Cruise.
Yes.
On May 29th. Have you ever played on a moving boat before?
I have. I did it last year.
Oh, fun.
The WCPZ was kind enough they had our song in rotation there and invited me to go out with the cruise. We had a lot of fun. It was a beautiful boat. And, you go out in the middle of Lake Erie and we were singing songs. And I mean, it was great.
You got the sunset going on.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. So I'm doing that again this year and we're looking forward to that.
You told me you're also playing the Barrel House in downtown Sandusky for the first time. You've not played there before?
I've never, usually I won't go farther than my golf cart will take me. And if I get to the water and I haven't gotten to the gig yet, I call them up and I tell them, if I can't get there in my golf cart, I don't go usually. But the folks over at the Barrel House are really cool and it seems like a really fun place. So
it is a really fun place. Yeah, that show's on May 31st. What do you think you'll be playing there, which is most of your original stuff?
Well, I'm sure I will probably do the bigger, more popular ones of mine. So hopefully we get some Bob Gatewood fans out there. But, my first time into a new venue or a new town, it sort of depends on who shows up. If I have a lot of...
You'll read the room again and see what the ages are.
That's exactly what I do. So I imagine we'll be playing a lot of favorites and some of my own stuff as well.
I would bet that people at the Barrel House are probably going to be fans. They've probably seen you on the island, and you've been performing Put-in-Bay, Middle Bass, Kelly's, Marblehead, and now Sandusky. You've been performing all over the Shores and Islands area for sure. And you mentioned this is going to be your 39th year performing.
Woo-hoo!
That's amazing. Congratulations. Next year's going to be a big anniversary for you.
It is. I can't. I started at the Roundhouse when I was only 4 years old. I can't believe that they let me in the place. But
That was so sweet of them.
I know it was very good.
Where are you going to be playing around the islands?
On the island, pretty much any joint that'll take me. I play the Roundhouse with the band. We play there on these Wednesdays that I mentioned before. That's a lot of fun. It's
Calabash Wednesdays.
Yep, Calabash Wednesdays. We do about a dozen of those.
Cool.
And then I'll also play solo at the Real Bar. That's sort of the place where I play mostly on the island these days. It's a great venue, great sound, great food, great drinks, and a great sight line and a great stage. I really, really like that place. And the folks there really like to hear my stuff. I also play the Boathouse. I do the Fishbowl once in a while. I used to play there a whole lot. Now I just usually go back there once or twice a year. Oh, well, this year, Mr. Ed, who has Mr. Ed's bar up there, he asked me if I would come play. And I said, well, I love Mr. Ed. He was my neighbor up here, and he's a real sweet guy. I told him, I don't know if those young folks in there want to hear old Bobby G, but he seems to be convinced of it. So they're trying to get a date booked there too. But I played Frosty's. I played every place up here. Joe's Bar. I play when it's an island. It's only 2 miles long, and you play guitar.
You're hitting them all.
Eventually, you're going to play them all.
How can people find that schedule? Where are they going to be able to find all of your gigs for the summer?
That's an excellent question. No wonder you're in charge of this program. Thank you for asking. That's brilliant. They can go to our website. That's bobgatewood.com. And they'll have the schedule. I'll be playing here on Put-in-Bay. We do some things over at Kelly's, like I said, in Sandusky. I'm also coming to, there's an event stage in Port Clinton. I think it's called the Main Street Stage.
Yeah, the Main Street entertainment area.
Yes, that's it. I'm also doing a little bit of middle bass. And then after the season is over, then I'm going to start. I didn't mention this part, but in the off season, I travel around and play music in different parts of the world for travel, for fun.
Now, do you think you're going to continue that after this summer season? Are you going to travel some more?
Absolutely. Last year's cruise ended up at Margaritaville in Fort Myers, and I think we probably wind up doing that again. That was a lot of fun. By the time that's over, I needed a vacation from my vacation because I'm pretty worn out. So we'll go relax somewhere by a pool, and then it's back up to Put-in-Bay to get back to work.
Yeah, back to work. Well, speaking of back to work and the summer season and your regular gigs, you also have some island businesses that you operate when you're not performing. Do you want to talk a little bit, just briefly, about AB Lodging and AB Carts? What are those businesses about?
Absolutely. There's a little house in downtown Put-in-Bay that we bought from a fella named Bill Massey back in 2017. And my wife and I started fixing it up. She turned it into a lodging facility. And then so we turned that into it was the kind of house that was just sprawling. Like you ever drive through the country and you see like a farmer's house that has rooms coming out of it that just sort of like grow like for no purpose, and because he had another kid and he needed a little more room. That's kind of what that house was like. We couldn't figure out any purpose for it. But after staring at it for a while, we realized we came up with a floor plan where we could make 3 suites. We have 2 suites that are 2 separate bedrooms and a common room and a bathroom with a private entrance so that you can go up there with another couple, but you don't have to be like in a hotel room where you're directly across the bed from your buddy, you know, and all the inconveniences that might present. And then where the kitchen was, we turned that into a small room, but it has a bathroom and a queen size bed. They all got queen size beds, and we called the kitchen the Cozy Cuddy. That's been real good. We rent that from Airbnb, and my wife runs that thing pretty much. She's a miracle worker down there. And then the coin of the realm in Put-in-Bay is golf carts. We have a small little golf cart operation too, and I sort of know how to make those run from my old days of making the band van make it down to Florida and back. You know, I know how to change a tire here and there.
Sure.
Yeah, so that keeps us pretty busy, and it's a lot of fun, and I enjoy providing the service to people. You know, a lot of people can't drive golf carts where they come from. And so they come up here, and it's just really an experience that they really enjoy. And I love seeing the joy on people's faces and on kids' faces when they're done. And they give us a lot of great reviews. We get a lot of great 5-star reviews from these excellent customers. And we can take the time to tell them about how to not, park in the wrong place, or how to switch to into reverse, and maybe a little history about the monument, just so that they have a good time. We sure don't want them getting a traffic ticket or a parking ticket. So we try our best to help them through with that. So it's really been a great thing. And sometimes, like the other day, with me and my Facebook stuff, we went on there and sort of made a thing like the Roundhouse. Every spring they turn on the whiskey light, which is the neon light at the front of the bar. And we had a hanging up of the AB Carts and Lodging sign.
Open for the season.
Right, open for the season. And we think it turned out so well, and it was pretty well received. We think we're going to do it again next year, except we're going to play some music and have champagne.
Make a party out of it. I mean, if anybody knows how to, I'm going to guess it's you.
So if you want to settle down for a night, you can settle up when you settle down here in Put-in-Bay at the AB. And you can find those businesses. You can look up AB Carts, AB Cart Rental, or you can look up AB Lodging, both of them.com, abcartrental.com or ablodging.com. And you too can settle down on Put-in-Bay.
Perfect. Well, speaking of settling up when you settle down, would you mind taking us out with one last performance?
Sure, I'd love to. I appreciate your asking, Joe. All right, so now this sounds pretty different from the album. This is all about me being happy that I found a good partner in life. I brought out my A game to try to get that girl. I tried everything I knew to get inside her world. I took a high road and it led to a better town. I settled up when I settled down. All right. I turned the page when she walked into that door. I quit looking, 'cause I found what I was looking for. She was the only one I want to be around. I settled up when I settled down. I settled up when I settled down. I got tired of chasing something that only brought me down. Now I got the girl and I'm floating off the ground. I settled up when I settled down. Woo. See, I was lost like a tin man with no heart, going nowhere, stumbling in the dark. She came along and I was nowhere to be found. I settled up when I settled down. Settled up when I settled down. I got tired of chasing something that only brought me down. Now I got the girl and I'm floating off the ground. I settled up when I settled down. Woo! Come on now. I was a running, yeah, I was a hiding from myself, 'cause I was too young, dumb, stupid. I couldn't ask for any help. I took a high road and it led to a better town. I settled up when I settled down. I settled up when I settled down. I got tired of chasing something that only brought me down. Now I got the girl and I'm floating off the ground. I settled up when I settled down. I settled down when I settled up. I settled down. Woo! That's a fun little song, huh?
I love it. That's great. Congratulations. That is so
I
much
appreciate
fun.
that.
Everybody needs to go listen to Bob Gatewood's brand new single, and we will link to that in the show notes. So thank you so much, Bob, for joining us.
It was a real pleasure, Jill. We love Shores and Islands, Ohio. You guys do so much to promote our area, and we really do appreciate you having us on the show today, Jill. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Bob. It was such a treat.
Okay.
I love it. Again, that was Put-in-Bay entertainment legend Bob Gatewood. Be sure to catch him live this season if you can. And a reminder that all of May's episodes of The Shoreline are brought to you by Ghostly Manor and Goofy Golf, so extra special thanks to them for their continued support. Finally, thank you for listening. If you enjoyed this podcast, please be sure to like and subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts so you don't miss a minute of the action here in Shores and Islands, Ohio. You can also find more information, including past episodes of the podcast, online at shoresandislands.com. And we will see you next time on The Shoreline.